Ah, hello. Welcome. Welcome. This is a very last minute thing I've decided to do. I mean, it's something that I've sort of I sort of wanted to do for a long time. It's always been in the periphery in my mind somewhere, but I just decided today was the day. So what is it? Well, the coffee has just finished brewing. It's we're having the coffee makes me poo mug today, but as I'm be drinking it this way round, it's just gonna look like that. But that's fine. Uh, so for a long time, I mean, I sort of tried it off and on over years. I wanted to do like a video gamey podcast discussion thing. I don't know if it will just be me all the time or other people will be here, but yeah, just a place to just chat for an hour. I'll have an idea of a topic going in, and then we'll just see where that goes, and then maybe when I spoke my bit, we can just see what's happened in the world of video games recently. Maybe I can react to stuff. That's a thing that the internet likes, right? I probably missed the boat on that one. But there we go. Yeah, it's very bright in this room. Even it always is bright in this room, even when it's cloudy out there. So we got the coffee, and we just need the video game. So I think actually, like the thing that made me want to talk about it this week in particular was it was a chat that we were having in the Munches Odyssey playthrough. It's quite hard to articulate yourself well when you're playing a video game with your friends. Yeah, you can't really get all your thoughts out. But this chat was sort of inspired by something else that happened. So in our little group, we were talking about one of the newest, but not it's still like a couple of years old, I guess, at this point, or it came out last year. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles beat 'em up game, and the idea that the modern conveniences like saving things like that make it better. And obviously, I'm just an old man, so I just everything was better back in my day. But it wasn't really about that my thinking as such, but I did just kind of want to like talk about that idea of how we used to play games and how that's changed over the years. Like, what is better, what is not better, etc. Like in terms of those sort of modern things that have come in, and if you're playing those older games, what is really the best way to do it. So, I'm again like very particular about how I like to play my old games, but that's just the fun of it for me. I like to have like the actual old console. I like to have a physical copy of the game. Like I quite often will have a reproduction copy if like the actual physical copy is way beyond my means. I'm not like insane. I'm not going to bankrupt myself, but I do like to have something tangible to have. And then like I like to just I've got my big PVM TV, big fat box to make it like look as good as possible. So sort of like optimizing nostalgia is the way I like to think about it. I like to optimize my nostalgia because it just brings me back to that place of of so many years ago, of being a kid, of being a teenager, and having that kind of free time and sitting there and just playing video games just for fun. It helps me set out the rest of the world and just focus on that one thing. That's kind of where that mindset came from. But something I've been thinking about, especially in terms of like older games, is even with like a modern, I would never be against like a modern way to play something, like the Nintendo Online things that they do, like the NES and SNES and Game Boy and all those collections, or just re collections like Konami have released a bunch of really good ones that are like dirt cheap. You can play all the Contras and Castlevanias and all that sort of thing. Yeah, all those types of things. I'm all for those, and like save stating. It basically save stating, isn't it? Just save wherever you want, and they normally have like a rewind feature in case you mess up and you just want to go back to before where you messed up. Like those have become very popular, and I'm definitely not against it because I don't think there's like a right, there's not a right way to play anything. You just play it, the way that you enjoy, and that's obviously the best way. But then, the best thing, like options are always better, and we didn't have those options back in the day just because that was the technology. I'm sure they would have given us these conveniences had they had the option to. Maybe sometimes though, not having those options is better. It does make you appreciate those games made in those era the way that a little bit more than you would. And I have like a theory around that so obviously on the base level, right? I'm gonna take a game called Rocket Knight Adventures as an example, which is a Mega Drive game. I didn't actually have it growing up, but it's one I think it was just easy to get when I started, I guess, collecting properly as a younger adult in my early 20s. We won't talk about when that was, but games were like retro gaming was like pretty cheap back then, and not like now. So getting a Rocket Knight Adventures, I think I just got it on the cheap, from online or a second-hand game shop, or it might even have come with a Mega Drive that I bought at the time because I wanted to start playing my Mega Drive again. This was directly after I finished university, and I was living with my girlfriend and a housemate, who is one of my friends of a very long time. And I used to come home from work and just play Rocket Knight Adventures every now and then, and just get a little bit further every single time I got through it. I just play it like the once and then game over, and then okay. And then the next time I would get a little bit further, and I got really stuck on the big robot fight, the big mech fight for ages, and eventually got past that. And then when we started doing the channel back then, when we were doing kind of like these 10-minute episodes or whatever on YouTube, I managed to get to the last boss and lost. I've never gone back to it since then, but I really want to, and that is probably going to happen on Twitch at some point. But the point of that experience was that game now is really like embedded in my memory. Like, even though I haven't finished it, I've only got to the last boss, I'll always look back at Rocket Knight Adventures as like one of my like top tier, Mega Drive games, top tier games in general. I don't think it'd make the top 10 as such, but it'd probably be like around the top 20 or 30 or so. And considering I've been playing video games for I don't know, 25 years, I don't know, maybe more, probably more. There's a lot of contention to be in there, so that's pretty high. I started to think about, like, if I played that game with the sort of ability to just pick up at the level I got to, with a save, even if it was the start of the level, or even being able to like rewind, or like not having lives, etc. Would I have the same appreciation now that I got through the process of actually playing it from the beginning, not every night, but a few times a week or whatever when I had the time. And I honestly don't think I would. I think I would have beaten it, enjoyed it, probably beaten it on my first attempts with rewinds, right? Or just the other thing would be maybe I would get to that robot part and just get so angry that I couldn't beat it that I never play it again. That's also possible. But that's not what happened, obviously. And just replaying those same levels, and obviously this speaks a little bit probably to my way that I like to enjoy games, but I think there's plenty of other people who are on my wavelength to some degree on that one. It was building that familiarity and that sort of skill set, and that kind of going back and starting it again as it would have been sort of designed to have been played, because that's how it was designed to be played. Like, the people making that game, they were making a console game in an era where that was just kind of how you had to design it. You couldn't make like a big long experience on those cartridges, really. Maybe some of the role playing games, obviously, but for a platform action game like that, it was pretty typical for it to be something that you could beat in about an hour, maybe less than that, but you wouldn't because it was hard, and then you would go back and play it. And then for a lot of games, you would even after you beat it, it'd be, well, I still want to play it again. I'm gonna do it better this time, which is where the genesis, I guess, of speedrunning comes from, which is something else I don't partake in, but I do enjoy watching. Yeah, so that was the broader thought. So yeah, I don't think if you went in, and obviously this doesn't apply to everyone, but just maybe the sort of people that would be that would potentially enjoy that style of gaming, right? Because you don't know really if you're that style of gamer or not until you start. Unless you experience it. And a lot of people, our pal Hugh, who was talking about it, this is like he's just not that way inclined. That's not the way he enjoys video games. So it's a very different mindset. But there's still plenty of us, I think, that enjoy that kind of challenge and that setup of doing things and getting really familiar with a game, and all its sort of intricacies. The Sonic games are a big one for me. Like I've played them so much, I almost don't even have to think about it. Like the old ones, when I play it, I just sit there and it's super easy for me. But like someone playing a Sonic game for the first time, or someone who's just not that familiar with them. I remember when Sonic Mania came out, and everyone was saying how hard it was, and for me it wasn't a challenge at all. Really, not because I'm some like amazing gamer. It's just the mechanics were so familiar that it fits like a glove to me. I'm just in that zone. I've done it so many times. So to swing it back to like how you would play that game with all those modern conveniences, I started to think like maybe if you were playing these retro games for the first time and you don't know how maybe you're a lot younger or you just didn't play them whatever when they were new, I think having that temptation of, and it's a difficult way to talk about because it is kind of an accessibility thing and you don't want to remove that, so it kind of gets into Dark Souls easy mode debate territory if you're not careful. But if you play those games and you have the option to rewind and the option to save state, even if you tell yourself you're not going to use them, does that temptation sink in when you lost to a boss and you lose a bunch of progress? I mean, and does it improve it or does it make it worse if you then use the sort of rewind or save state feature to sort of put yourself right before whatever challenge it is that's sort of beating you in that moment? I don't think there's really a right answer there because it sort of depends on the person, but I know I would get tempted. That's the thing. Despite knowing better, it's a bit like when I'm angry at a fighting game online. I know in that moment the best thing to do is to put down the pad and take a break. But what I actually end up doing is just playing a bunch of other games, really angry and then losing them to the point of just turning it off in a fit of rage, which is no good. And the right thing to do would be to have stopped when I felt that sort of the tiltedness coming over me and just take the break, because in my mind I know that's the real problem, right? It's that you can't play angry, you'll play worse. So but it doesn't work like that. The brain is, I don't know if we're all that smart to know. So even though that I would know playing a retro game, the way I would appreciate it better is to run it to the point where I get stuck, or I just run out of time, or run out of lives, depending on the game, and then just be like, okay, that's enough for today, and then turn it off, and then start from afresh the next time, and that would actually make me like the game more. I don't know that I would do that in the moment. I'd probably throw myself over and over again at the at whatever challenge it is, and yeah, and then maybe just not want to play the game again for a very long time after that. So it's nothing really you could do, because, like I say, I do think it is the right thing to have all those those conveniences and sort of modern conveniences. Yeah, with more people get to enjoy the game, the better. But I just don't think that you can really, if you were inclined to be that like me in the way I play games, I don't think you could be you could appreciate that game as much as you would have done if you had played it the way you would have had to have played it back in the day, sort of thing. That's just talking from my experience. Like, I know those games, Mega Drive, well, I never have a Super Nintendo, but I've gone back and played those games. But like Mega Drive games in particular, that would be where I'm coming from here. Yeah, those games that I've had to play over and over again, I now have like that level of familiarity where those games are like really important, and I know that I've had that experience since, so it's not just isolated in that bubble of time when I was a kid. Like, I've had that experience since, like with Rocket Knight Adventures, and it's something I try and make myself do more often, and even and I'll get to this with more modern games actually, and the approach that I think is good for me anyway. Yeah, I think that slower approach and sort of, it's happened to me with those. So I've lost my train of thought. It's happened to me since, by going back and playing old games in that manner, by like with those weird restrictions that I put on myself of having to play on real hardware, etc. I kind of forced into doing it. But all of those old games that I've played like that, even like a game like Super Metroid that has saves, you still can lose a lot of progress by dying and ending up back at your last save. There's checkpoints can be, they're fairly generous, but they're not, they're not everywhere. You can still lose a lot of time by dying, and you can get very stuck in that game by not knowing where you're going, etc. But Super Metroid is a game I didn't play back in the day, and I've beaten it since, for the first time I beat it maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I'm not sure. And it's one of my all-time favorites. So yeah, I think I do believe that it's a way to really appreciate it. Coffee and video games, Hugh. Yes, I'm actually just elaborating on. Oh, look at that chat. That looks horrible. Might have to. That's what I get for just stretching it, I guess. Can I fix that? Yeah, I'm just sort of elaborating on some of my thoughts. From our previous conversation in Munch about how to play video games. But you missed a lot of that. That's fine. Anyway, look at that big ugly font. I don't know how to fix it for now. And I do think it stretches. You can stretch it into modern games too, but the way I would stretch it into modern games, I guess, is it's more about taking your time now, not binging. So I watched a video a long time ago that was all about. Yeah, that's going to look worse. So I'm just trying to fix this chat box. That should be better. Let's just have that. That was basically about how you consume media, and it can be done with like seasons as well, and probably like books and things, and that like psychologically, and there's all these studies behind this as well. The guy's called Daryl Talks Games, if you want to like have the real good explanation. If you binge something, like, you're more likely to retain less of that information. Like if you binge like a whole season of something all in one go, or if you binge play like a video game, just all you do, like, you're less likely to have like made these long lasting sort of memories, so you might not feel as like connected, or you might just not remember as much of the experience as like time goes on. But like if you take your time with something a bit more, if you take it a bit by bit, if you think about how we used to have to watch TV series when they were just, on TV stations, and you had to like wait a week or whatever to watch the next episode, you're more likely to form like longer memories and longer lasting connections to those things. So I think there's probably something to that, and the idea of like replaying a short game, a lot and getting a little bit better at it. And I do think it applies to the longer games these days as well. So, like with the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, even though that game was like a absurdly long game, I made a point of taking my time with it, and just like enjoying a few hours an evening whenever I got it, rather than tried to steamroll it and just. I did want to do all the content. I think that would have happened either way, but I think you could sort of be like, right, I've got to do all of it, so I'm just going to try and optimize my route through everything, and just distract from actually like enjoying the experience. Right? That's the way I felt about that, at least. And I do think there is I do think that's been helpful in playing games for me, like, and just enjoying them more. Like, stop trying to sort of tick off a bunch of boxes, which I could be very inclined to do. I very much like ticking off a bunch of boxes. I guess it just feels good to do. So I like I've got huge lists of video games that I want to play, and so I can be tempted to be like, to be like, I just need to tick off as many of them as possible. But I still have my big list, but I'm trying to enjoy them and try and enjoy them more these days. So one of the things that I've started doing recently, that obviously Hugh will know if he's in the chat because he's in the group, is that I've got my big list of old games, and that I let a randomizer choose one, and then I will, if I can afford it, that'll be my game. I'll buy it, and that'll be my game for the month, and my retro game in particular. And it's sort of like a way to make sure that I'm getting the most out of my little retro setup. And then when I get the chance, I will just play it, And I guess the temptation there will always be like, well, I need to finish it in the month before I get the next one, right? I'm not sure about how that's going to go just yet. But right now it's worked out okay, because the timing of the games, the two that I've had, is it's just worked out fine. So that's worked out well. But I think there'll come a point where I get a really long like RPG or something, and then the next game will be something else that's got like a narrative or whatever, some kind of linear progression. I wonder how I will react to that. I guess I won't know. I'm kind of hoping that if I get a really long RPG type game on there, that maybe the next month's game will be like something really arcadey, like a Pac-Man, or because I don't own Pac-Man, but and so that I could still play the long game while also dipping into playing Pac-Man. I don't know, like that would be the ideal one. Maybe I can manipulate the results some way to be like, well, this game come up, but I obviously can't play this game right now, so we reshuffle. But then none of that might go against the spirit of the randomness of it. So I would treating it like a deadline. That's something that is something that's crossed my mind with it. But I guess I'll just have to cross that bridge when I come to it, because I do. One of my rules with that whole list thing is that I have to play it. Obviously, if I don't enjoy playing it after a certain point, then like obviously I would stop. Like I'm not a masochist about these things, but I like to think everything on there is something that I'm at least curious about enough to put enough time in, even if I don't finish it. And like I say, it has worked out quite well recently. So the first game I got was Virtua Quest, which was, I think it was like 9 or 10 hours. It's probably a bit more than that because it didn't save like the times that I game overed or whatever. I think it just saves every time you save, sort of thing. So the time starts from when you load the save. It's not consecutive. So probably you could add an hour or two onto that. So maybe 11, 12 hours max, between like 9 and 12 hours, which is quite doable. You know, it took me the month to do. But then I also would say that Virtual Quest I did enjoy. I wasn't hooked. I wasn't like, oh, I definitely am going to play this like every night. It was more like I'm enjoying playing this every now and then. So a month was about right to accomplish that. So I wonder if I hadn't finished it and then I got the next game, which was Bomberman Wars that I'm playing now, maybe I would have just dropped it and been like, well, this isn't fun enough for me to want to carry on playing when I got this new thing. Yeah, that might be fair enough as well. You know, I don't have to finish every game. That's also something, you know, I think it's nice to recognise. You could still really enjoy a game that you haven't finished and still look back and be like, yeah, I still really like that game. It still have, you know, like I do with Rocket Knight Adventures, having not beaten the final boss, I'd still put it, you know, absurdly high in the good game list. I was talking about Joe with this when I was playing Final Fantasy X. This is kind of just like word diarrhea. An hour of word diarrhea, by the way. That's coffee and video games for you. I was talking to my pal Joe about this a while ago because I got to the end of Final Fantasy X, to like the last boss, and yeah, I couldn't win. It just wasn't actually possible with, well, maybe it was, I don't know. It felt like it wasn't possible with the skills I had, and when I was looking it up online, it was like, oh yeah, you kind of need, I forget, like X, Y, or Z. I think the boss has these things where it can turn you into a zombie and then kill you, or but you kind of sometimes want to be undead. I don't remember. Yeah, and then I would get to like whatever I think it's the third phase of the boss, and then I would just be wiped out, and all your planning and time would just be undone. And I just thought the way around this is to go and do side content and grind, because I didn't do a lot of side content, and I only grinded every time I hit a brick wall in that game, which happened a couple of times, but not that often. And I would go and grind the sphere grid and get the abilities I need to like get past whatever thing I was stuck on, and that was fine. But at that point of reaching the final boss, I had no desire to go back and grind. I ended up just like watching the cutscene on YouTube just to see how it ended, because I was like, I don't know that I'd even feel accomplished, because I've looked up what it takes to do it, you know, and it would just be grinding, getting these skills, and then doing it, right? It wouldn't, it just didn't make me feel inspired to do it. So I still feel like I can look at Final Fantasy X and be like, yeah, I've experienced the full game, at least the story, you know, the linear part of it. I didn't do like hardly any of the side stuff. Yeah. Yeah, so I still feel like I can have an opinion on Final Fantasy X, basically, of its like of the general like linear story part of it, at least like the main story. I feel like I'm justified in having, you know, an opinion because I did it, even though I didn't quite do it. Try and finish games before buying new ones. Yeah, I've been definitely down that road for sure. Probably still. Not in, well, buying new ones. And yeah, I don't think I can quite say that. I've bought a lot of games on whims before, but I'm doing a lot better with that. I haven't bought a new game in a long time, and I'm kind of in that. Sorry, I just kicked something over on top of me. I'm just going to move that. Yeah, I'm kind of very strict now on. I don't buy games even if they're really cheap, because I've got a backlog, and that backlog has to be beaten. And that's for, like, I'm talking about modern stuff, like, there as well. Maybe I shouldn't make such a distinction, but, like, yeah. They're in different rooms, so my brain thinks they're different things, I guess. However that works. I used to all be in one room, but Nikki won't let me have all my games in the living room, so, yeah. I make a distinction between, like, newer and older stuff based on that, which might not be the right thing, but I don't think that's going to change. That's my weird brain. But yeah, and I think you can miss like you say, you miss the point if it's just about having fun, right? But then you kind of force yourself to finish something, and then that can make it. You might have enjoyed finishing the game if you weren't trying to, brute force it so that you could get a different game. Yeah, which is definitely something I feel like I've done. I find I do that a lot when I get near the end of games. I think I was going to say this about Final Fantasy Rebirth before I just like went on a completely different tangent. Like I found after playing 90 odd hours of that game, and I could say this about so many games, and knowing I was so close to the end, even though there was a little bit of side content I haven't done, I just felt I can come back to this later if I want to. I just really want to finish this game now, and just like that sort of taking my time mentality just got superseded by like, yeah, I want to get to the end. I want to watch like YouTube videos that about this game and that sort of thing. And I don't think it didn't really affect my opinion of the game in any way, but I just find that happens a lot when I feel like I'm coming up to the end of it. I would start rushing it, and also start binging it. Like that's where the binging happens, because it could be a while. With Elden Ring it was like that for a while. I got to like, I was probably still like 10-15 hours off the end, but I felt like I needed to go and just finish it at that point. But then I've read a lot of people had that with Elden Ring, because like it's just the way that end game is, right? And then the really, really extreme version of this that I went through was with Death Stranding, where I was just playing it like a normal game, and then one day I played it like all fucking day, and I got to the point where I thought it was nearly over. It wasn't nearly over, as it turned out, but I ended up playing Death Stranding for 17 hours that day. So, finished it though. I probably should go back and play Death Stranding again at a slower pace, because I really liked it, but I don't know if that was the best thing to do. But hey, it was a hell of a day. Okay. Trying kind of doing that with Sekiro. I was enjoying it, trying to brute force it. Great to play Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah. I think that's a good idea. It's you've probably taken a break to play like the longest fucking game you could have chosen, but that's what you want to do. I'm with you. I'm there. Tears of the Kingdom is a weird one for me. I love Breath of the Wild. So I'll tell you something about that in a second. But Breath of the Wild is like one of my all-time like favorite games, all-time favorite video games. I wasn't really like, I've always been curious about Zelda, but I didn't really like play a Zelda game like a lot. And then I played Breath of the Wild, and then Breath of the Wild became like literally like it's the Mount Rushmore kind of game for me now, and it came at just the right time. And it sort of happened like actually making this like retro wish list of games to play, right? I looked at Breath of the Wild on the Switch and made like, man, I could play that game again on the Wii U. So it went on the list on the Wii U, because then I can play it on my old TV. Something to make something old new again, I guess. Yeah, I think Tears of the Kingdom's overtaking your time with. Yeah, I guess so. I just don't. Having said that about Breath of the Wild, I've struggled to really get into Tears of the Kingdom, and I think it's because I was trying to play it like Breath of the Wild, maybe, as more of an explorative game, and just sort of, Breath of the Wild was great because like around every corner there was like, you were just sort of something to find, something to do, and like, yeah, really good for taking your time with, just constant like, I don't know, constant endorphins happening. And with Tears of the Kingdom, I haven't been able to like. There's times where I really like it, and then there's times where I like stumble upon something. Like it's got that Elden Ring thing of like you'll find a boss that you can't beat, right? And then maybe you're meant to go away and get some better shit and come back to it. But I struggled with that. It's like I kind of just want to beat it. I don't want to come back and fight this guy. Yeah. I didn't really like the underground world as much as I thought I would. But I do really like it sometimes, but then, I don't know. It's just not as interesting to explore because it's all dark and you can't see anything. And I just didn't really get on with the, like, gluing shit together thing. But because I just found it really fiddly and nothing ever worked the way I wanted it to or whatever. So like, can I just go up here or whatever? But that's like obviously where the joy of the game is, right? Is the sticking shit together, making fun contraptions, and maybe I just need to play more of the game to get more of the stuff to like actually make some fun contraptions rather than trying to collect every like item as soon as I see it or whatever. Because you could kind of do that in Breath of the Wild. You could like some things you couldn't climb to or whatever, but most of the stuff you could do then and there. But then I guess there was enemies like Lionels and stuff that you shouldn't really fight. You could just leave and come back to. Finds parts, but it being fun. Yeah, yeah. The sky sections I enjoyed a lot more. Like the tutorial part, or like the opening part, I loved in Tears of the Kingdom, and I was like, oh man, like I'm really down for this. Yeah, the underground part, not so much. Like I didn't hate it, but I don't find it that stimulating, especially because you have to keep like just throwing stupid lighty things everywhere, and that just another resource to have. It's got a bit too many resources, Tears of the Kingdom, I think, and I actually really like Breath of the Wild's like everything breaking mechanic. I enjoyed that because it made you like you have to think on your feet and adapt all the time. Tears of the Kingdom kind of has like too much shit going on, I think, and you're okay, what do I need to stick on my arrow? Blah blah blah, like searching through your menu. I don't know, bit fiddly for me. I don't hate it, but I think like now that I'm reflecting on it in this moment, I think that might be one of the things that maybe also made me not as hooked. Like Breath of the Wild is all a bit more immediate. Yeah, it was just fun to just be like, oh, it's a Korok seed or a temple or whatever like thing to find. I was really hoping that Tears of the Kingdom was going to be like Breath of the Wild with more dungeons and more story, right? Like bring back some of the old Zelda. I know that's quite a common, like that was kind of a common want before it came out, but because I got into Zelda from Breath of the Wild, and now like I've played a lot of the older ones. I've played like Ocarina and Wind Waker and Skyward Sword. Those are the three I've beaten since Breath of the Wild came out, and also some of the 2D ones. But talking specifically about the 3D ones, those are the ones I beat. I was kind of hoping they might just give us a bit more, throw a couple of classic Zelda bits in there, because I do definitely miss like the really cool dungeons. But I'm not against new. I do like the newness of it, and you can't just do the same thing forever. And Zelda was definitely in that, at risk of stagnation when Skyward Sword came out. But I happened to actually really enjoy Skyward Sword, motion controls included when I played it. So, yeah, the sticking things together part is. I feel like I should have had more fun with it, but I get frustrated with things not working, I guess. That might just be a me problem, That might just be I need to take a little step back and just appreciate the failures for what they are and have a good time with them, maybe. I think in the overworld I don't mind it. I think I got more frustrated in the what are they called? The shrines, the little challenger things that come out the earth. That there's kind of like how you get stronger. I gotta call them shrines, because a lot of those were, they were reliant on the sticking stuff together part, right? That was the that was how you would solve most of those. And I kind of I would prefer the sticking stuff together thing to be more of an option rather than a mandatory thing, I suppose. Maybe that would have made it funner for me, because that's kind of also like Breath of the Wild's strong point, wasn't it? Like that you had always many different options for doing stuff, and I think the sticking stuff together makes that more so, gives you a lot more options, which I like. But then I guess the shrines in Breath of the Wild also had very specific solutions a lot of the time too. So yeah, it's maybe just a very specific to the way I like to play games thing. But I definitely am going to come back to Tears of the Kingdom. I'll probably start it afresh when I do. I just think I just need to leave it a bit longer. Yeah, very. I do think a part of it is that after Breath of the Wild, I got to go back and appreciate uh, old Zeldas for the first time properly. So, yeah. I'd say with both identify what's wrong with free roaming open. Like, it's got secrets to collect, but not going to maps and parkour climbing them like Assassin's Creed. It feels fun to do. Yeah, I think with Breath of the Wild, in particular, just because I have the most experience with that, um, that's kind of like the way I look at it is they made it as into gameplay. They made like everything into gameplay. Like it's even traversing the world is gameplay. Oh, pardon me. It's not just like you say, go to point on map, climb tower or whatever, do very specific scripted challenge. It was like, just look around, you'll find some good shit. Feel free to do what you want to get there, you know. If you want to just eat loads of fruit to climb up a big thing you shouldn't be able to climb up yet, be my guest, you know. There's a lot of different, yeah. It made everything kind of this creative, do it your own way, not puzzle, but it's like made exploration fun. It made it into an actual game and not just a series of very specific, specifically scripted challenges. I think Elden Ring also did not the same thing, but I think it learned a lot of those good lessons from Breath of the Wild that I think a lot of the games that were inspired by Breath of the Wild might have missed into like making exploration fun. Didn't necessarily make the map a big interactive thing like Breath of the Wild did, but I think it made exploring its own reward. Which is probably like how people felt about Skyrim back in the day, right? After repeatedly falling into canyons. Yeah. Something about Tears of the Kingdom ones were just a bit more frustrating for me. Maybe it's because you have to stick it all back together again if it doesn't work out, and that just takes time. Yeah. Who knows? But yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of... Yeah, modern gaming definitely... I guess this is the... If we bring it all like back to talking about modern conveniences and stuff, like you could say like when you're talking about Assassin's Creed, like Assassin's Creed must be like one of the more influential video games. Maybe Far Cry, I don't know. They both kind of made the same similar strides in open world game development, didn't they? At the same sort of time, but like the towers and maps full of clutter and shit. That became sort of game design 101. Yeah, I do find it an interesting thing to think about, you know, because I know that we'd all be on kind of the same page, and when people talk about it on these sort of levels, of like when you go to someone and they're talking about video games, like in any forum, like on YouTube or an article somewhere, like they're probably going to be of the opinion that like that's not good, having loads of clutter on your map and like big glowy lights in the sky that tell you where to go. All that stuff is like bad, but like there must be something to it, or maybe it's just they've normalized it, you know, enough that like the people that don't engage in dialect around games, maybe they are cool with it, you know. I don't know. I don't talk to many of them. You just did the floating fish island task and googled how to get there. Found out I'd done it right, just slightly messed it up each time. Yeah, I don't even know what that is, so I guess I have that to look forward to. Like on the, just like reading your little paragraph, it sounds like, is this like Tears of the Kingdom's like island from Breath of the Wild where you go there and they take all your stuff and it's like a mini little survival challenge? I don't know. Yeah. So I'd say one of the other cool things about Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild and that sort of game design is the like the way they're not really afraid to let you miss stuff. To unlock the water temple. Okay, well I haven't done that yet. I only did like one temple. I think it's the wind one. They're not afraid to let you like to just have stuff that people won't find, and they're like happy with that. Whereas like a lot of modern games, you know, they definitely would be unhappy with, oh, we put all this effort into this thing, so we want people to experience it, right? So they'll just sort of signpost everything, and that's where you get like chatterbox, protagonists being like, oh, that's an interesting rock or whatever, type thing, and yeah, it's just, but it's way more fun to feel like you're discovering things by yourself. At least I think so. And I always like find it fascinating when I go online and after I beat a game and like I watch a video about it and they'll be like, oh, this stuff. I was like, I had no idea that was there. Same experience as I had with Hollow Knight when I finished it for the first time, and then before I went back to like 100% it, and you'd be like, oh look, there's this whole place where bees live, and it's like I had no clue that this was here at all. And I actually find that cool. That, oh, there's more to this that I never even saw. Yeah. I found lots of weird stuff in Breath of the Wild after beating Ganon, and it was still fun, basically. Yeah, same for me, actually. I went back and I wanted to do all the shrines. Like, I didn't do all the shrines the first time I beat it. I did quite a lot, but I didn't do all of them. And then I found, like, every month or two, if every month or two I would just be like, man, I got nothing to do, and I'd just, like, open up Breath of the Wild and just find a couple of shrines. And just by doing that over the course of a very long time, I ended up beating the whole thing. Yeah, I often don't really engage in post-game content as well. It has to be something I really enjoyed for me to want to go and do that. I don't have like a completionist mindset. When I commit to doing something completionist, then it's probably going to become a bit of an obsession, but it's most games I would say I don't try and do that with, or I would get very put off by trying to do completionist stuff. But then when I really get into something like Final Fantasy VII Remake, I haven't tried this on Rebirth yet, but Remake specifically, like, it became a little bit of an obsession. I had to do everything in that game. So it happens sometimes with me, but not most things. Yeah, but most, like you say, post-game stuff, generally speaking, I don't engage with it. Like, I roll credits and that's good enough for me. I will have probably engaged with as much of the game as I want to at that point. And I guess that's like sort of circles back around to doing it slowly as well. Like I did with Breath of the Wild, like finding all those extra shrines. The one thing in Breath of the Wild I didn't even start or know about when I beat the game was I forget the name of the village, but the side quest where you talk to all the people and then they like make this new town. I can't remember the name of the town, but like they build up the new town after you get your house or whatever, because I didn't do the house bit either. I was like, didn't really care about having a house because I didn't think there was any point in it, like, so I just didn't do it. And that is actually a memory I have now after doing that quest in the post game, like probably like a year or two after the game even came out. That like I now associate doing that quest as one of my favorite parts of the game, because of the taking it slow part. Finding out that Hadouken in Mega Man X, but you have to beat in the game to do it. Yeah, I'm trying to think about that, because I know when we played Mega Man X on the channel back in the day, I don't think you have to have beaten the game. I think you can do it whenever, but it's very esoteric. I remember that it's at the end of the level with like the minecarts, and then you have to kind of do like a crazy jump to get up there. So you might need the specific abilities to do it, and then it's up there on like a higher jump right near the end of the level. I remember us like doing it over and over again. And Mega Man's like a really good example for my original point, actually, about playing games. But obviously, to get back to what you're saying, like, yeah, how many RPGs do that, right? They hold like the ultimate weapon behind the hardest secret boss, and it's like, well, I guess they just want to give you something for the challenge for doing it. But then it's like, well, what's the point in this? Like, I've done everything. Why do I need the best sword? Now I can go beat Sephiroth even better. Like, I guess, yeah. But even at that point, even being like, yeah, without the ultimate weapon, like to be at that level to like do to beat like Ruby Weapon, just for example, like if you're that good, like the end of Final Fantasy VII must be trivial. It's already trivial to me, like playing the original Final Fantasy VII. I just like doing it. You know, I've solved that puzzle many times over, but yeah, I just like re-experiencing the game. But I guess that's another conversation for another time. But yeah, Mega Man. I thought about this in my head a little bit about Mega Man over the years. So I never played any Mega Man games growing up, like at all. I think the first time I played Mega Man was like the Wily Wars as a ROM when I first discovered emulators when I was like probably like 15, 16, I guess. And I didn't really care. And I would come back to it every now and then and just be like, this game is hard. I don't like it. You know, the NES ones, I guess. And then I actually watched like the Game Grumps playing Mega Man 2, and Aaron from Game Grumps was like a big Mega Man guy growing up, and like watching them play it and have like the experience of watching someone who loves the game play it. I guess like I just, you know, I took some of that in to be like, I know I kind of see what people like about it. You know, I kind of get, you know, seeing someone else who loves it play it, you know, and them explaining why, you can kind of be like, okay, yeah, I get it a little bit now. And we've played a couple of Mega Man games on the YouTube part of the channel back in the day, but I've always done it, especially because, you know, it's content that you're doing, I guess. I've always done it with the guide to know, okay, this is the level order you want to do. Like, so this get this weapon, then the next boss is weak to this weapon. And then I've always, like, never actually beaten them because of, like, the post-game gauntlets are always a bit much for my meager abilities. But then I do think, like, have I cheapened that Mega Man experience for myself a little bit? Because I think isn't the fun of it experimenting and figuring out who's weak to weak, and sort of you get so far in one level and then maybe you get stuck, so you try a different level, and then eventually you, through just your knowledge that you gain, you sort of figure it all out, and then, you know, maybe beating the last level won't be so hard. Yeah, I don't know. Something I need to experiment with. But at some point, maybe Mega Man is a game I don't stream and have to play in my own time with that mentality of not looking up how to beat it, you know, weapon weaknesses and wise. Yeah, I've never in my life gotten Knights of the Round. Funnily enough, as much as I love Final Fantasy VII, and I will put the original up as, like, again, it's on that Mount Rushmore, which, by the way, in case you're interested, is Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Final Fantasy VII, Shenmue, and Breath of the Wild. Although Sonic 3 and Knuckles is kind of interchangeable with many Sonic games. But yeah, it's just, let's put Sonic's head there. Yeah, I've never done Ruby Weapon, Emerald Weapon, Knights of the Round. Never gotten a gold Chocobo. Like, I've done some of the side bits. I guess I've gone back and done the, you know, found Zack memory, but I barely interacted with the gold saucer other than what you have to do, because I never really, the mini games were shit even in the day. You know, even back in the day, the mini games were shit. Yeah, yeah, you could just beat Sephiroth now. Yeah, you never need to do any of that stuff. And Sephiroth isn't really, like, particularly hard. I actually think Sephiroth, if I recall, he's like one of the only bosses that scales somewhat to the level you're at. I might be completely wrong about that. Just the last one. I don't think Last Genova or anything is like that. But there is some really, like, if I recall, there is some cool ways that Genova fight can go depending on, like, your team composition or how you get to it at the end. But yeah, I think that Sephiroth fight scales a little bit to your level, so you're basically always able to finish the game so long as you can get to Sephiroth. But you will have to sit through all the planets getting exploded a lot, and that takes a while. You don't need to beat the game, but you do need all the upgrades. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so basically you need to have beaten every Robot Master and then do it. Okay, that makes sense because I remember doing it at the end when we or like before. So I guess it could make the boss rush part easier because you always have to do a boss rush in Mega Man, right? I should probably try that game again because I remember like just not doing the Hadouken, but now I think I've got that quarter roll technique down. I've played a lot of fighting games since then to a very amateur level. You need 5 lives so you can kill yourself 4 times. Is that Mega Man? Is that right? Okay, that is very weird. I think with the Hadouken, if that's the requirements, then it's basically an Easter egg, isn't it? It's not really. Yeah, it's like here's this weird secret. Here's this Mortal Kombat reptile fight-esque stupid shit you can do just for fun, not because it's useful in any way. Right. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. Walk off the edge 4 times. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like something that it's just for the fun of it, right? The developers just thought it would be a fun little Easter egg. I don't think it was ever intended then to be something that you would actually desire. Yeah, post-game Easter egg for sure. Yeah. Man. Yeah. Yeah. That's a whole other way of thinking, right? But yeah, we're coming up to about an hour, which is what I said I would do on this thing. But like, this is a fun little format. Basically, just I'm gonna try and do this every Sunday at like 10. I'll come up with some kind of talking point that I'll start with, and then if someone's here to bounce off, then that's helpful. Yeah, maybe get some other voices in here if people want to join. You know, maybe we can make this more of a conversation rather than me talking to a chat box. Just if people are free, and if no one's free, then I'll just do what I'm doing now and just sort of see where mind goes, because this is not a very structured thing. But I think I'm fine with that. Maybe we'll find a niche with this over time. But yeah, cheers for coming along, Hugh, and keeping me company on a Sunday morning. I now need to go and touch some grass, as the kids say, and buy some lunch, more specifically. But then we'll see what happens from there. Yeah, so this sort of video will end up probably on YouTube. So yeah, if you're on YouTube and you want more of this sort of content, every Sunday on Twitch at 10 o'clock. That's the plan right now in my head. And also every Thursday we stream at 7 p.m. UK time every Thursday. Me and my pal James, Easy E, are going through our backlogs, you know, collectively. We're trading off one at a time, going through our old retro backlogs and try to beat them all. So join us then, yeah. And those will all end up on YouTube as well in time. So, yeah. Well, that's cool, Hugh. Well, maybe a Sunday mornings I can talk to you in bed every now and then. That'll be fine. I quite like the idea of that. Hopefully you're not wearing very much. That will make it even better for me. Either way, I'm going to picture it that way. Anyway. Yeah, thank you for joining me, or thank you for watching this in the future, and hopefully see you in a future stream. Bye bye.